Today on 10-Minute IT Jams, we have Vincent Nair, who is the President and CEO of Smartech. So Smartech is a provider of B2B payment platforms and e-commerce solutions for postal systems, serving the North America and APAC regions. So welcome to the Jam, Vince.
Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No worries at all. So to begin, could you just tell me briefly what core business services does Smartech provide?
Absolutely, and I think you touched a little bit on that earlier. So we provide payment platforms for postal authorities in Australia, in Hong Kong, Singapore, across Asia Pacific. And what that means is we connect the postal authorities to their end customer base. And in terms of the end customer base, these are B2B clients that postal authorities have that actually get automated solutions, whether it's mailing services, whatever that may be. So there are millions of dollars worth of transactions happening between the postal authorities, for instance, Australia Post, and their end clients in Australia. And what both entities do, they use our software, they use our hardware solutions to make sure that the payment goes through. We are also a large provider of high format printed solutions in Australia. As a matter of fact, we are one of the largest. We represent manufacturers like HP, Epson. We also represent Canon. Probably about half a dozen of those global hardware, large format graphics solutions. We sell those products to the end customer base, and we service those solutions. We actually do the maintenance for them as well. On the other side, our third pillar is being Australia's largest e-commerce parcel locker solutions, hardware and software solutions to the likes of Australia Post, where we provide hundreds of digital parcel locker solutions to Australia Post, as an example. And we service them, we run the call center, the client center solutions for those types of users of those digital parcel locker solutions for Australia Post. So our business is kind of more centered around those three streams. And then we've got some other augmented business lines as well.
Yeah. And one of your most recent developments is that you've relocated. You were in Hong Kong and now you're in Australia. You're based in Sydney now. So can you tell me what caused that shift?
I mean, Hong Kong has been my mainstay. I've spent a lot of time at our head office in Hong Kong. 2019, there were, I think, the national security law introductions. The bill caused a lot of protests in 2019. It kind of caused a lot of fear factor to businesses, particularly foreign-owned businesses in Hong Kong. Now, as of last year, there were about 300 US companies, as an example, who were HQ'd in Hong Kong for their Asia Pacific operations. So being there and spending a lot of time in Hong Kong right up till the end of 2019, we all felt, I mean, the business leaders felt a lot of nervousness in terms of what had happened through the protests and where all of those messaging was going with China and the potential for the bill getting kind of completion through both houses. So there has been that, I guess, genesis back in 2019 that got us to start thinking about what would be the future of our business. Should it be in Hong Kong? Should it be outside of Hong Kong in terms of our head office and our investments? Wherever there are head offices and headquarters, shareholders and the rest of the global I suppose, operational subsidiaries. They rely on the head office for strategy. They rely on the head office to make sure that the future growth stems from the market certainties in that country. So those activities, those political activities, kind of caused us to start thinking about investing elsewhere, starting to move out and do those things. Now the pandemic didn't help at all. That kind of forced many businesses that I know of in Hong Kong and kind of started forcing us to start to look elsewhere. For me, it was pretty easy. My home has been in Australia, in Sydney, Australia for about 35 years, and I've worked in many different countries in Asia Pac. So it was an easy conversation. We were very fortunate enough to have, over the last 6 or 7 years, become financially self-sufficient. So it was a matter of discussing with the board in terms of where we would be investing into which country showed and demonstrated that we had the right political, alignment in terms of certainty in a very difficult pandemic. So we did a lot of work, and it was either going to be Austin, Texas, or Australia. Now Austin is also we have a U.S. head office over there. So we ended up deciding to move to Australia, and therefore we started looking at acquisitions. And then we completed the acquisition in December for the Quadient business. That took us about 6 to 8 months to complete, and we are now also looking at further investments in Australia.
Yeah. So you've done some pretty significant things in the last 5 or so years. So, and then you've come across a pandemic, as everyone else has, and you've shifted your headquarters. So how have you maintained growth over that time?
It's been challenging. What a lot of people don't focus on is the risk factors for any business. Growth has to be kind of enveloped around risk factors. There's always going to be a risk, even in a stable economic zone, let alone where we've been in the last couple of years in Asia and here. So in terms of our ability to look at growth, we've had to look at how well we have secured our business in the last 7 years, and how well do we use our capital that we've had put together as a foundation for not just employment security for our employees, but in terms of our growth, and where does the growth actually fit in, and how does that, what does that mean for our future? So in my own, calculations, we had to look for a business that had a similar core structure to what we were doing in Asia. And if there is a kind of like a 30-70 fit, that's a good thing. So in terms of the acquisition that I engaged in with Quadient, with the head office in France, back in February of last year, we had to make sure that there was an alignment. We had to make sure that this was a good thing for them as well. It was a little easier for us to have those conversations because we represented Quadient in Asia, so the parties will know to each other. But importantly, we had to make sure that the two big parts of our future growth, which was relocating our head office from Hong Kong to Australia, and making sure that we were acquiring and investing our money in the right business. We had to go through a lot of iterations for that. So the result of the last 4 months clearly shows on how well we've done in Australia. For example, every month we have met our revenue and earnings target in January, February. We exceeded all those months in April. We just got a year-to-date results for April in Australia. So we are exceeding what was the plan that was actually created back in December in conjunction with the former owners. So that's been a good measure for us. So it simply means that in the 6 months of due diligence, we knew what we were doing. We knew what to look for in the due diligence. We needed to actually ask the right questions. And therefore, when we took ownership, we want to make sure that the plan itself was viable and reasonable, and we are seeing that. So now from here onwards, what I want to do is, make sure we complete our conversations that I'm having right now with private equity groups. We want to now invite, a couple of pegs to work with us to invest in our future. So our earnings has been very strong in terms of the last 7 years of our operations. A year to date this year looks stronger. We have a couple of target companies that we are in discussions with right now. We want to make sure that by the end of this year, we've completed those 2 transactions. And I'm hoping that for our 2022 plans, we have doubled our revenue base and we have secured a stronger position for our shareholders and employees in Australia.
Right, awesome. Well, you actually just answered my last question for you, which was what are your future growth plans? So thank you for that. Cool. Well, that's pretty much all we've got for today. So that concludes today's IT Jam with Smartech President and CEO Vince Nair. Thank you so much for your time today, Vince.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.